Welcome to Voyage Daily Tech, the most important news personalized for you every day, supported by Voyage.com.
Today, we're sharing 5 stories. First, an Apple executive's testimony in the Department of Justice trial against Google reveals a historic drop in searches on iPhones, all thanks to AI's growing power. Second, after losing nearly $70 billion, Meta is pivoting with its new Hypernova AI glasses, an $800 device controlled by a neural wristband. Third, Google faces a £5 billion UK lawsuit while its parent company Alphabet announces a £5 billion investment there and a surprising green energy deal with Shell. Fourth, China launches an anti-monopoly investigation into Nvidia over its CUDA software platform, just as former President Trump signals a deal to save TikTok is done. And fifth, a hacker named Shiny Hunters steals data from 7.4 million customers of luxury brands like Gucci and Kering, exposing their total lifetime spending amounts. A top Apple executive just dropped a bombshell in court testimony. For the first time in more than 20 years, the number of Google searches on Apple devices has fallen. This testimony, didn't just happen in a vacuum. It came out during the massive Department of Justice antitrust trial against Google, where the US government is arguing that Google has an illegal monopoly over search. This drop in searches on Apple devices is a key piece of evidence showing that the landscape is finally truly changing. A while back, we broke down Judge Amit Mehta's ruling in this very case. He acknowledged Google's illegal monopoly, but stopped short of a breakup, keeping intact the multi-billion-dollar deal that makes Google, the iPhone search engine, worth over $20 billion to Apple. Crucially, he pointed to generative AI as a rising disruptor. This latest data point from Apple suggests the disruption isn't theoretical anymore. It's actually showing up in user behavior. The driving force behind this historic shift is, of course, AI. Chatbots like ChatGPT are exploding in popularity, now boasting over 800 million weekly active users. That's double the number from just a few months ago. We said this was coming fast, and now the adoption curve is here. And they are coming directly for Google's turf. On desktop browsers, the share of searches going to AI models has more than doubled in the last year alone. People are ditching the 10 blue links for a single synthesized answer. It's not about searching anymore. It's about asking. Users are turning to AI for everything from meal recipes and outfit ideas to planning entire vacations, saving hours of research. This trend does introduce something researchers call the cognitive convenience trap. While it's amazing for simple tasks, there are real questions about outsourcing our daily problem solving to an AI. Are we risking the erosion of our own critical thinking skills? The convenience is undeniable, but it's a trend that could have profound psychological consequences down the road. But don't count Google out just yet. The search giant denies it's losing ground, pointing to its own new AI tools and claiming its overall queries continue to grow. What really brought this to a head was Google's countermove, integrating its own powerful AI, Gemini, directly into search results with features like AI overviews. Regulators and competitors are watching this very closely. The Department of Justice is worried that by leveraging its search dominance, Google could be creating an anti-competitive moat to crush smaller AI search startups like Perplexity AI. The question regulators are asking is this a legitimate product improvement or a tactic to extend a monopoly into the age of AI? But that's not the whole picture. The real turning point is how this all connects back to your wallet. Early signs show that when people use AI to research a product, they are more likely to buy it. This is forcing a massive shift in marketing, as companies now have to figure out how to get their products recommended by an algorithm, not just ranked on a page. This completely rewrites the rules of the internet economy. For 2 decades, the game was about getting clicks to your website. But if AI just gives the answer directly, that fire hose of web traffic dries up. So the thing is, how do you get recommended? These AI models are being trained to favor what they consider authoritative sources, often relying on existing search engine rankings. This creates a new rich get richer dynamic, making it incredibly hard for new businesses to break through. It's a fundamental change in how we find information, and the war for your next question has officially begun. Speaking of the battle for AI dominance, Meta's metaverse division has lost nearly $70 billion since 2020. But instead of pulling the plug, they're doubling down with a massive pivot. To even begin justifying that $70 billion hole, Assuming a decent profit margin, Meta would need to sell something like 87.5 million pairs of their new $800 glasses. That is a monumental task, especially when the entire global market for smart glasses was only about $1.5 billion just a couple of years ago. Meta is shifting its focus away from the virtual reality headsets that costed a fortune and betting on a new category, eye-powered smart glasses. The company is set to unveil its most advanced pair yet, codenamed Hypernova. And believe it or not, the glasses feature a display and can be controlled by hand gestures through a special wristband using neural technology. Now, when you hear neural technology, you might be thinking of brain implants, but that's not what's happening here. The wristband actually uses a technology called electromyography, or EMG. It has tiny sensors that read the electrical signals your brain sends to your wrist muscles when you think about moving your hand. So by just intending to tap your fingers, you can control the glasses. It's a technology Meta acquired from a startup called CTRL Labs, and it's a huge leap toward interacting with computers without needing a keyboard or a screen. That new display, combined with the camera, brings up a huge social question. Many of you might remember the term glasshole, used to describe early users of Google Glass who made people feel uncomfortable, not knowing if they were being recorded. A big part of Meta's challenge isn't just the tech, it's figuring out the new rules of social etiquette to avoid a glasshole 2.0 backlash. However, if you zoom out, you'll see another layer of strategy at play. This isn't just about selling a new gadget. Meta's ambition is to create the next major personal computing platform, challenging the dominance of Apple's iOS and Google's Android. To do that, a new device needs apps, or it's just an expensive paperweight. To avoid this ghost town problem, Meta is aggressively courting developers, trying to build a thriving app store before the glasses even launch. And here's where the twist comes in. Apple and Google are now reportedly working on their own competitor glasses. The situation presents a fascinating duality. On one side, Meta is betting on having the best, most advanced hardware first. On the other, Apple and Google have a massive strategic advantage. They control the phone in your pocket. They can integrate their own smart glasses seamlessly with iOS and Android, leveraging an ecosystem of billions of users. They could potentially make Meta's glasses feel clunky by comparison, even if Meta's hardware is better. So is Meta's $70 billion bet finally about to pay off? As one analyst put it, the fact that everyone is now developing glasses suggests that Meta's Reality Labs concept was well conceived, and they're out in front at this point. The race for the future of computing just got a new frontrunner. Speaking of competition between giants, Google is facing challenges on multiple fronts, and not just from other tech companies. The story begins with a decision that caught everyone by surprise. Google is facing a £5 billion lawsuit in the UK for allegedly abusing its search dominance, while at the exact same time, its parent company Alphabet announced a £5 billion investment in the UK. When we place Google's legal troubles alongside this massive new investment, the contradiction becomes clear. This isn't just a coincidence. This investment can be seen as a powerful strategic move, a way for Google to position itself as an indispensable economic partner, potentially softening the blow from regulators by showcasing its immense value to the UK economy. This 2-year, $6.8 billion pledge is aimed squarely at Britain's AI development, including a new data centre and more funding for the AI lab DeepMind. Google projects this will create 8,250 jobs annually and could add £400 billion to the UK economy by 2030. But let's pause and look at those job numbers. The promise sounds incredible, but a significant portion could be temporary construction jobs, not permanent high-skilled roles. It also doesn't account for potential AI-driven job displacement elsewhere. This all comes at a politically charged moment, just as the country hosts a state visit for Donald Trump, with the UK's finance minister calling it a powerful vote of confidence. Interestingly enough, this is a classic example of tech diplomacy. By making this announcement during a high-profile US state visit, Google reinforces its value to both the US and a post-Brexit UK. But while the government calls it a vote of confidence, it raises a critical question. Does this deepen the UK's technological dependency on the US? Right now, the UK has only about 3% of the world's computing power, so this investment raises long-term questions about data sovereignty. But the most unexpected development might be this. Google also just signed a deal with British oil giant Shell to manage its renewable energy supply in the UK. A tech company and an oil company teaming up for green power. It's definitely raising eyebrows. The big question is whether this is genuine new renewable capacity or something else. Shell will use its trading power and massive batteries to manage power for Google, but the concern is that this could involve simply buying renewable energy credits without actually building new solar or wind farms, a practice some critics call sophisticated greenwashing. This story is about a high-stakes legal battle, a massive economic bet, and a political power play, all wrapped in a stunning new corporate alliance. It leaves one massive question. In this clash of titans and technology, what is the real game being played? From tech diplomacy in the UK, we now turn to the front lines of the tech war between the US and China, where things just got a lot more complicated for Nvidia. Just as top officials from both countries sit down for trade talks, China has accused the American tech giant of violating anti-monopoly laws. The investigation is zeroing in on something very specific, Nvidia's CUDA software platform. Think of CUDA as the secret sauce that makes Nvidia's chips so powerful for AI. The problem from China's perspective is that it creates an ecosystem lock-in, making it incredibly difficult for customers to switch to a competitor's hardware. So while this is a real legal argument, the timing is undeniable. It's a powerful geopolitical tool to pressure the US in these trade negotiations. This move is seen as direct retaliation after the US tightened restrictions on selling high-end chips to China. After all, Nvidia was trying to walk a tightrope. In response to US rules, they developed special, less powerful, export-compliant chips just for the Chinese market, like their H20 model. So for China to launch this probe now feels like a punishment against Nvidia for complying with its own government's regulations. Now, Beijing is firing back, putting one of America's most valuable companies in its crosshairs. And as we've discussed before, tech CEOs like Nvidia's Jensen Huang have increasingly acted as de facto diplomats. This move turns their back-channel deal-making into front-page leverage. This is where the situation takes a more complex turn. While one tech battle heats up, another may be ending. Former President Trump, who once called for a complete ban on TikTok, has completely reversed his stance. He just posted on his social media platform, Truth Social, that a deal has been reached on a certain company that young people in our country very much wanted to save. They will be very happy. Why the sudden change of heart? After gaining popularity on the app, which has 170 million US users, Trump's position softened. The White House even launched its own official TikTok account. So while US and Chinese officials are negotiating tariffs and chip exports in Spain, a deal to save TikTok is announced back in the States. This all points to a much bigger strategy at play. Welcome to the era of the grand tech bargain. We're seeing top-level geopolitical negotiations where completely unrelated tech sectors like high-end chips and social media apps are being bundled together. It's a form of strategic horse trading. Concessions on one front, like easing up on TikTok, can be used as leverage to gain advantages somewhere else, perhaps in the semiconductor war. It makes these negotiations incredibly complex because a win for one industry might come at a cost to another. While governments are trading tech access like poker chips, another kind of high-stakes information war is being waged in the shadows, and this time the targets are some of the world's wealthiest shoppers. Hackers just stole the private shopping lists of customers of Gucci, Balenciaga, and Alexander McQueen. A cybercriminal operating under the name Shiny Hunters claims to have swiped the data for 7.4 million unique email addresses. But this isn't about credit card numbers. This breach proves that non-financial metadata, like your spending habits, can actually be more dangerous than your credit card number. A card can be cancelled, but a detailed profile of your lifestyle and wealth is permanent, allowing criminals to build a deeply personal file on you. The most revealing detail they got was a field called total sales for each customer. A small sample of the stolen data revealed customers who have spent over $10,000 with some spending between $30,000 and $86,000. And this is where the story takes a dark turn. This information is a goldmine for other criminals. The theft of this total spend data creates what experts call a whale list of high net worth individuals. This list can be weaponized for hyper-targeted attacks, like incredibly convincing phishing emails that reference your exact purchase history, or even to plan physical crimes, because criminals now know who has disposable wealth and where they live. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The public standoff between the hacker and the company. The hacker, Shiny Hunters, claims they contacted the parent company Kering and negotiated for a Bitcoin ransom. But Kering tells a completely different story, flatly denying any conversation and refusing to pay following law enforcement advice. This standoff is a fascinating look into corporate game theory. When a company like Kering refuses to pay a ransom, it's making a calculated bet, paying guarantees you are funding a criminal enterprise with no certainty you'll get the data back or that they won't sell it anyway. By refusing, Kering is gambling that the damage from the leak is a risk they are willing to take rather than setting a precedent that they are an easy target. Kering confirmed a third party gained temporary access to their systems back in April. Now, when you hear third party, that often means a major platform like Salesforce. These platforms operate on a shared responsibility model, which means while the platform provides the secure infrastructure, the client in this case, Kering is responsible for correctly configuring security settings and managing user permissions. A single mistake on the client's end can open the door for hackers. This wasn't an isolated event. It was part of a wave of attacks that also saw luxury brands like Cartier and Louis Vuitton disclose breaches. The biggest question now isn't just about the data that was stolen. It's about what happens next. For millions of luxury shoppers, their status as a big spender has just become their biggest vulnerability.
That's it for today on Voyage Daily Tech. Follow, share, and stay tuned for daily updates coming your way tomorrow.